Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific Northwest, from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
The sweet, sweet Mariners, baby!
Eardrums have erupted with that little eruption that you just caused.
Bring the energy.
Mariners opening day is tomorrow, so in honor of that, we're going to do a little toasty toast to the season. Let's just hear that thing crack real quick.
There you go. For all those wondering, I'm drinking a rum and coke.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Spot on IPA. That's what it's called. Spot on IPA.
You like
It's
me a
spot
good
on.
IPA.
Hits the spot.
And you know where you can find IPAs? Down at T-Mobile Park and support the Mariners this season.
Okay, it's getting a little tough for our crowd that doesn't want to support John Stanton, but we'll get into that. I'm guessing in this episode. Before we dive too far into it, this one's going to be a little bit of a preview to the season. We're going to give you our concerns that we have about the team and our reasons for optimism. But before we do that, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you're looking for a guy that is hands down the MVP of this podcast, just like your boy Julio Rodriguez, got his jersey and everything, going to wear it to work tomorrow. That's me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on X at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the Real _Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also, find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, and leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy, just like his intro on the Mariners there, comes with some power, but sometimes you don't know. And that's basically the scouting report I got on Luke Raley. So if you're looking for the Luke Raley of this show, a power hitting lefty that's going to come bring the power in this episode. Hopefully it doesn't strike out. We'll see. But that's your boy, Cain.
AKA Nuke Rayleigh. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Cain. You can find me over on Twitter at Cain2406, on YouTube at Cain06, TikTok, Cain0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us. Do it.
So usually I start with you because I can pivot a little bit, but I'm going to start with myself on this one. My
the floor
first
is yours.
concern for this year, and I'm going to bundle it because I think this is a common theme that most people are a little bit nervous about. It's the health of this team. So I'm going to break down what everyone's talked about, and then I'm going to go a little bit deeper. Shocker. So obviously we know the likes of Mitch Haniger, Mitch Garver, and Jorge Polanco have dealt with some injury concerns in the last couple of years. Luis Urias is another guy that has also had injury concerns. Ty France has been in that bucket whenever he gets his wrist hit by a baseball or by Chas McCormick, little bitch.
And you told me not to curse.
Yeah, I told you not to curse. I didn't say I couldn't, but that's what he is. So we're going to call him that. So, but those are the guys that, you know about. Those are the guys that have had that. We're already starting off the season with Brian Wu going on to the IL just because he couldn't get loose. So Ryan Divish came out and said last year, similar type problem happened. MRI's clean. Took him about 20 days, but that was mid-season. So I would expect this one probably to go at least 20, if not 28. I'm expecting to see Emerson Hancock up the majority of this year, or not majority of this year, first month of the season. So that being said, you really look at this team and how they're set up. Yes, you're looking for the staff to be good, but if you're dealt a couple of injuries, you're already into your top guy in the minors, and there's not really that next starter type behind him. Then you're going to have to start ramping up Austin Voth to be that guy that can do. Tommy Malone is going to have to start getting it. The season hasn't started if Tommy Malone has not signed a minor league contract with us. I did not do the research on that, but God, I would be shocked if he wasn't sitting there in AAA with the Rainiers. But when you look at that, you're also looking at the bullpen right now. Is Matt Brash going to be available for opening day? You know that Gregory Santos isn't. You've had Munoz, who spent a little bit of time on the IL. You're expecting a lot, and that's the big overarching thing is, yes, I think that to start this year, when you remove Robbie Ray, who was not going to be available until
Right.
the midway point, open up the door for some of these guys. You use that to go get some of these hitters that you acquired, like Mitch Haniger, who had a bang up spring, but it's a guy that gets banged up pretty often. And if this team gets hit with the injury bug at the wrong time, it could not be very fun. Yes, this team is going to have those runs in them where they can put, at least by spring training numbers, put some runs on the board. But if the bullpen gets a little bit more banged up, the starting rotation isn't getting deep into games, and you're playing catch up continually, it's tough to do. And it's going to really come down to injuries for me
Yeah.
to really dictate how this season is going to unfold.
Yeah. And to kind of touch on that, we did mention like the 4 or 5 inferior players. Julio's been banged up a little here and there.
Mm,
He's missed a month or two at time.
I think he missed
He,
like 2 weeks in two
rookie
years.
year, I'm pretty sure he missed like a month with the wrist thing.
No, 2 weeks.
But you know, injuries do plague teams sometimes. It seems to always happen to the Mariners specifically throughout the entire league. Um, but to kind of spin it, if the team is healthy, right? It's a deep team. It's really a deep team considering all of the 40-man guys.
Deep team when healthy.
Well, they've got some players to kind of put in positions to play if
Agree. I
somebody
think
goes down.
position players, they're in a much better spot than
But
they
but the
were last
starters
year.
are
But
yeah.
with the pitching staff as a whole, starters and relievers, you're
Yeah.
not in as good of a spot. Like this, I think it was from Locked On Mariners, tight end Gonzalez said, Marco Gonzalez, get ready to relearn Mariners because
Yes, I did see
that's the
that.
type of guy that the Mariners need. And
Yes.
it's kind of what I've been pining for. Desclafani ends up getting not even started for the
Yeah.
Twins. So, and the money that was going to be involved with him is absorbing it. But with Marco Gonzalez, if somehow you need to go make a play for him at some point, he's a guy that is loved by this roster. And if you pitch
Up
in
by
a
the city,
and the other
honestly.
thing is you can probably get him for a lower tier prospect if you're willing to eat the money. And if you're in contention, that's the type of move that you make. Go get a guy that's going to get you 6 innings every start.
Yeah.
Yes, he's going to have a blow up start, but at this point, he'd be your number 5. And
Yeah.
that's a pretty good number 5. Tyler Anderson was that guy for us a few years back that we made that trade for, blew up for the Dodgers last year. But when
Mm.
you really look at that signing, when we made that trade for him, wasn't super excited when he got with the team, but God, I think he had a stretch of like
Eh,
9 games where he went 6 innings and gave up 3 or less runs.
right. And it was kind of like when we got Chris Flexen too. He was a guy who could kind of eat some innings. Yeah, he got shelled a little bit.
Chris
But
Flexen was nails his first year.
yeah.
Nails.
Um, but us talking to this kind of leads me into my big concern is Andres Munoz. He's going to be my biggest concern for the bullpen this year because as of right now, he's our closer. Correct? Correct.
Correct.
So last year, watching Andres Munoz was like having, on the verge of a heart attack.
It was like the
Every
Fernando
game.
Rodney experience.
Exactly. Load the bases, get out of the jam. Holy crap, the Mariners win.
He was
But
August reliever of the month.
I understand that, but it's too many times. Trust me, I used him in MLB The Show. I know he was. But he concerns me because he's just wild, right? You're hoping that another off season, another spring, kind of taking that next step forward. I believe he's 25 now.
25, 26, yeah.
So you're hoping he takes that next step like Matt Brash did, right? Coming from starter to reliever during the year, then making that giant leap in year 2 as being our big setup guy. I mean,
I think
Matt
I would
Brash was
argue to say
filthy
that
last
Matt Brash
year.
was better in his rookie year.
I don't know, man.
The one thing that you look at a little bit with Brash is kind of like what I saw with Seawald is the beginning of the year was a little bit rocky for Brash last year, but as the year went on, when the pressure was on, he was pretty solid. When the pressure was light and he was just getting some work in, not so great. And that's kind of what you saw
Uh,
to Seawald last year too, where
you kind of saw that out of most relievers. If they're up, 8-0, and you're getting your pitcher out of there to get them some rest, they're just it's a bullpen session practically at that point. So you're not giving it your all. But Andres Munoz terrifies me. First batter up, walk. Second batter, single. Strikeout, scary play in right center, left center. Somebody's got to make a play, save a run, right? Let's hope he kind of dials it in a little bit, pulls his head out of his ass, and mows people down, because that's the type of guy he can be. So that's my concern.
yeah, I do like the fact that you've got a few more flamethrowers in the bullpen now as compared to last year. So that's good. Where if he does need some rest or a little bit of break, you have guys that can fill in that
Yeah,
position.
Ryan Stanek.
Yep. So my next concern, if you will, is I think MLB TV put it out there. They have the Mariners as the top ranked rotation in baseball.
Yes.
I hope to agree with them, but what you're really banking on is what you've seen in the past, where you saw Logan Gilbert make a big step in year two, where you saw George Kirby take that next step in year two. Really, you've got three-fifths, 60% of your rotation that you feel extremely confident about. And yeah, that's why they're all in the top 10 for AL Cy Young odds to start the year. But you're asking a lot out of two guys to make that step forward to really give you that top flight rotation. Miller has the stuff. When he came up with the big club, his first three starts, he didn't give up a run. I think he was like 21, 22 innings before he gave up his first run. Impressive as all get out. He was striking out guys left and right. But he got hit around as the year went on. I know he's been playing with the splitter, and I'm excited about it. And then you look at Wu. Wu's a guy that has had a lot of injury history, especially in the minors. Last year, he spent some time on the IL when he was with the big club, and it was hands down the most professional innings that he's ever thrown. And he had some arm trouble in college, so it was probably since the most innings he's ever thrown in a year ever, unless you look at high school and some summer leagues. He might have capped it out there a little bit more, but you're asking a lot out of two young guys that are going into their second year to really cement yourself as the top rotation. Is there potential for it to be hands down the top rotation? Sure. But I thought the Mariners were going to be phenomenal when you had, Felix Hernandez and Cliff Lee as your 1-2. And then when we dealt Cliff Lee to the Phillies, when they had Roy Halladay, Cole Hamels, and Cliff Lee, I go, that's might as well give them the World Series. That top three, when you come to playoff time, is dominant. And I don't think they made the playoffs that year. So
Right.
when you are, I love the fact that they've increased the ability to score runs. But if you have a period where you're not getting great results, your bullpen is going to get taxed. So if you have both of those guys that aren't getting deep into games, when you come around to the Rock, La Piedra, Luis Castillo, if he has an off day and can only get you 5, I mean, your bullpen is going to be gassed. So that's kind of a concern that I have. I'm not pushing my chips all in on that, but I have faith that we could see a little bit more, being a major league ball player, like legitimately you're penciled into this starting rotation and really ramping it up, having a full off season of being a big leaguer. I think will help these guys, but you never know.
Right. And to kind of touch on the injury aspect, with the back end of the bullpen, with Brian Blue, this team, as we've seen time in, time out, the starting rotation has been the saving grace of this team. It's been its identity basically since they were inducted. I mean, at least through the 2000s, right?
I would say go mid 90s. I mean, you
Mid
had Mark
90s.
Langston, sure. But let's
Um,
go mid 90s when you're looking at Randy Johnson,
mhm.
Stormin Norman Charlton.
But for a very long time, it's been the Mariners have always had a good rotation. It's just trouble finding the field, the bats to surround it, right? And then, as you said, with them taking the steps, correct? I believe Logan Gilbert was our number 5 prospect, right? 5 or 6.
Sure.
George Kirby was top 3. And what were Brian? What were Wu and Miller?
I think Miller got some love and got up to about 5, but I think that Wu topped out at about teens, like 15 or so.
Right.
The stuff's
So,
there. It's just
you know,
he wasn't able to put a lot on the field because of the time he missed due to injury.
with what we've seen from a top 3 prospect in George Kirby, right, taking that giant leap, you saw Logan Gilbert, who I believe was our 5 or 6 guy, take
Sure.
that leap. Bryce Miller, number 5 guy, probably not as high on the list as those two, but
Your farm system was a little bit more depleted when we brought him up with the Luis
yeah,
Castillo trade.
right. And so it does concern me because they are going to pitch more innings than they did last year because you got to get that arm fatigue up, right, or that stamina up. And
I would much rather call it stamina than arm fatigue.
sorry,
Arm
sorry.
fatigue brings me back to Drew Smiley and soggy arm pass, hard pass, hard pass.
At the end of the day, I think this team, you got Emerson to round out the 5 right now. And he was what, our number 2, number 3 guy too. So, and he's been that since he was kind of drafted. So,
I think he was there early. He's dipped down to 7 to 10.
that's fair, and it's I think he's also dealt with the injury bug, but that's just the big thing. This team needs to have solid pitching. And it's hard to think that with 4, 5, and possibly a 6-man rotation because you're gonna work Emerson.
You're not going to run
year.
a 6-man rotation. You're not. I'm not taking potentially 1 to 2 starts away from Luis Castillo, George Kirby, and Logan Gilbert. It's not happening.
It most likely he'll be the 4 or 5 if you're giving Miller extra time or Wu extra time. But it is going to be scary because they are very young still. And that's also a big concern. You have Luis Castillo, who's what, 31, 32? Mm-hmm. I think around there. Logan is 26, 27. George is 24. Wu and Miller are 21, 22. A little older. All right.
23, 24. You got a young staff.
Yeah. And that's always concerning in itself, right? Because we only have one established veteran right there, right? It's hard to call Logan a veteran at this point because I know it is year 4, and then George, this is year 3. He's on the cusp of what they call a veteran, and
so Logan Gilbert's veteran then.
I guess whatever.
Boom, roasted.
There's just not much MLB experience on this team. And I think that's through the entire pitching staff. And that's just kind of where it teeters on me. So we'll just have to see where it goes. All right. Another concern I have is Ty France. I have a couple things about Ty France. Yes, his driveline stuff, you love to see it, but you just kind of hope that it pans out, right? That's our biggest question mark for him. Did all the offseason help? Is that going to transition to the season? And I've seen a lot of stuff where this is a guy that can finally hit, 270, 20 home runs with all the work that he's put in. And I don't know, man. I just singles galore, or that's just all I see from Ty. I did see some wheels. He tagged up on a couple balls in spring training, but Ty France is just has a weird build for what he is as a hitter, right? You would think he looks jacked. Like it he kind
Dad
of
bod.
exactly.
About
But
to have about to have his first kid. Big ups to Ty France, but
and
he's
hey,
already been rocking that dad bod.
maybe he gets that special power that MLB players get when they have children and just have dad energy or dad power and just mash home runs. But the stats haven't been there for me in the last couple of years. So I am hoping that he brings it up, takes another step to becoming a better ball player. But, you know, years recent hasn't shown me very much.
I'm not worried about Ty France at all. I think he's going to be the key integral cog in the lower part of the lineup. This is the guy
I
that
do
was
too.
batting 2, 3, and 4 for us for the last couple of years. I think that he does have that power upside. I think that I don't know if I've said it on the podcast before, but I read a tweet or an excerpt from Ryan Divish that was talking about Ty France and how
Mhm.
he had said last year, Ty, you're the only professional baseball player I've ever covered that gained weight during the season without, I threw in this part, without an extensive IL stint. Like if you can't walk, you probably, like I'm getting my knee done, you're probably going to pack on a couple of pounds because
Mhm.
you can't be as mobile. Let's be honest there. But I think with the work that you've seen Ty France, he looks in better shape. His bat speeds up, plays an above average first base.
I agree with that.
I think that he's going to be the least of the concerns.
Yeah, and just
But
kind of
I can understand where you're coming from.
yeah, another concern I have is third base right now.
Taking all of the concerns 3 in a row.
That's right. That's right. Third base is a huge concern for me because we don't have, we traded Eo Suarez, so he was an established third baseman, but had a very down year. Um, and now you
I
have
don't love the defense coming from third base right now. Don't love it.
I not from the hot corner. No, no, no.
No Kyle Seager there.
No. But right now you have what Josh Rojas, maybe Dylan Moore, and
Luis
Luis
Urias.
Urias. It's a little concerning because as much as we love Demo, right? Had a great spring, great spring.
Love Demo. He was healthy
Do
for the spring training. He was not healthy last year. Late
right,
start, no spring training.
right. So you hope it kind of kicks off and then kind of takes the primary uh, position there, but and then Josh Rojas didn't look like he had a great spring.
He just clutches up at the right time.
I saw so much weird stuff about Luis Urias, like some Mariners accounts. I think Mariner Muse. Every time Luis Urias did something, he tweeted it out, and I was just
Oh, it was
like,
just like a roller coaster. Like
yeah,
routine ground ball, one hops it terribly. Then the next inning, on the run, bare hand strike to first base. Oh, like if he can't throw, why are they giving him at bats? Oh, the next day he hits a dinger. You know,
right. And your best defensive player at third base right now would be Dylan Moore.
hands down.
And hands down, he's a phenomenal fielder. He's fast. He tracks the ball very well. But then you got Josh Rojas. He's used to second base. Third base is a whole different demon, right?
A lot of guys that I played with, like if they were a second baseman, they transition pretty well to third base. I mean, it's a slightly different throwing motion, but most of the time you're coming in on the ball. It's not super rare where you're going away from the ball, so you're cutting down that angle and having a shorter throw
yeah,
across the field. Yeah, it's going to be longer than second base, but it's not anything compared to the range and stuff you need at shortstop. You're cutting down the throw, you're slicing the infield a little bit with some angles. So I he just looks a little funky over there when he's fielding the
yeah,
ball. I wouldn't
yeah.
say I'm not worried about him throwing the ball. I'm more worried about he's not the most fluid of fielders. It's kind of how Ty France
No.
was when he was bouncing everywhere but first, where it's like, I mean, I guess he can play here because I like his stick in the lineup, but I mean, I wish he wouldn't
Yeah.
have to play some
Yeah.
defense here at second base.
Just third is kind of a red flag for me right now. They could address it during the season and make a
The other thing
trade
is you've got
or
Locklear that can play first and third. So he's that guy that's waiting in the wings, and
Mhm.
he's right there at your top
Had
10
a good spring.
prospect. And
Had a good
he
spring.
had a hell of a 2023 down in
Right.
AAA.
So
So
sorry that I kind of took over there. Some of my
that's okay.
concern.
That
They
was one
were
of the things
just
I was going to talk about. So, but that
sweet.
leads me into my thing. It has to kind of do with my shirt here.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little concerned because Jerry Dipoto right after the year said we want to win 54%, which is what they won last year during the regular season. When you look at spring training, obviously the ties that they had, they were 15 and 13, which equates to 53.5%. If you round that bad boy up, it's 54%. I want like 55, 56, maybe even
Yeah.
60% on the wins. Guys, let's not take this to heart. Let's win more. And I think the one thing, which I'm going to lead into my optimism a little bit now. I think we've been pessimistic enough. We're going to turn the
Yeah.
corner.
Let's have fun now.
Okay. So what I'm going to say is I feel like this team has gelled pretty well. And when you kind of see where you have that common enemy of the front office, 2 years ago, when you came into that season with the comments that were made about Julio Rodriguez by the former president of the Mariners, when you heard the Seager comments, the Marco comments, Kelnick comments, all these things, it was a rallying cry. And they were basically like, we're doing this in spite of you. When ownership said, yep, we're going to increase payroll, and they might have by like 25 cents this year. They just kind of moved some dollars around because of their worry on keeping their pockets lined, right? I think that you get a little bit of a rallying cry because you had Calby Vocal at the end of the season, but I think that you've got a good group of guys, and it seems like they're gelling pretty well where they're going to be like, you know what? Let's just go out there and do the damn thing. You
Yeah.
know,
One
we've
hundred
got we've
percent.
got good pieces, and it's really just time to really take that next step forward. They've been 88 plus wins the last 3 years. It's time to make that next step to get into the mid 90s and maybe even touch 100. Because when you're doing that, you're making the playoffs consistently. You have a rotation. When healthy, your top three guys are going to be nails in the playoffs, as they've already proven to be in their limited playoff experience, right?
Yeah.
George Kirby looked great. Logan Gilbert looked great. Luis Castillo looked great in his starts. You feel good about those types of things, but I think that you could see kind of that mentality where this is a group of guys that just wants to go out and do the damn thing, and I
Yeah.
like it. I
I
like it a
love it.
lot.
I think this team is very gritty this year. I think they're hungrier than ever. And the catalyst of this whole thing is going to be Julio.
It's Zebby Zavala. We know it.
Zahala!
All right, I'm gonna do another thing because you did a couple in a row, so
It's
suck it.
fine.
Um,
Oh.
the next thing that I really enjoy about this team and what gives me a lot of optimism is those guys that are getting hurt are great clubhouse guys, right? The one thing that I was a little nervous about going into last year, yep, team really respected Gino. You had Paul Sewald. You bring in the likes of Teoscar Hernandez, kind of vibes with some of the guys, and then you had Robbie Ray, who's known as a good leader. Well, Robbie Ray goes on the shelf. Gino and Teoscar have down years, so it's a little bit tougher, and you saw the emergence a little bit more. Julio being a little bit more of that leader. You saw it a lot from Cal and a lot from JP. That's kind of off. That's kind of off their plate a little bit, and I love that for them. Mitch Haniger is a guy that a lot of these guys looked up to a couple of years ago. This is a guy who I said could be the captain of this team. Jorge Blanco was called, what was it, like glue or whatever, glue boy by Mitch Garver because he was the glue of that team. And it seems like Garv gets along with guys super well. So
Yeah.
not only do you have good clubhouse guys, because when you lost Carlos Santana, he was a good clubhouse guy. He wasn't playing every day, but was a good clubhouse guy and a good leader for these younger players. Well, you've got Polanco's had postseason experience. Garver was the floor hitter for the team that just won the World Series. And you know what Mitch means to this city and to these guys on this team. I think that having that core on still bringing those guys up, and like I said in the previous episode about Luis Castillo kind of being that old guy in the house. He doesn't have Robbie Ray to lean on. Yes, you bring that up. Sauce being the local guy. You're bringing in Sanik, who has had a bunch of playoff experience with the Houston Astros. You've got guys that have been there, done that, got that T-shirt, and some of them got a goddamn ring for the whole thing.
Yeah.
This is what's going to be important to this team because, like you said, yes, the rotation is young. Your impact arms in the bullpen are young. Your best players on the field right now are Cal Raleigh, who's going into year 3, Julio Rodriguez, that is going into year 3, JP, who's going into year 5, I want to say, maybe 6.
Yeah.
Like, this is a young team. Your third base position right now is younger guys.
Yep.
There's a lot of youth on this team. But sometimes when you don't know any better, you just go out and do the damn thing like they did in 2022. They weren't expected to do that. Yeah, we were excited being so close, but to go into Toronto and watch Luis Castillo go out and pitch his nuts off, and then the next game having that comeback in the Robbie Ray game, it was incredible. And then you were looking for them to build on that last year. And unfortunately, it never really got going. You got hot in August. You fizzled in September and couldn't make it there again. I think the way that this team is constructed, when healthy, has the opportunity to shock a lot of people. And not maybe not, because I looked at an ESPN article where you had like 2 people had the Mariners as the team that they predicted, or one had them as the predicted team to go to the World Series. You had 4 people expecting them to win the division. And then out of the people that didn't expect them to win the division, I think they were second most in votes to get a wild card spot, to slot into that number 2 wild card spot. So there is expectation. With expectation comes great responsibility. And I think that they've got a good blend of youth, experience, and hunger to take that step forward even more.
Oh, dude.
Sorry, I got a little fired up there. I'm ready.
You're good. Day. I am also ready, and I do think this team will shock everybody because the Seattle Mariners are America's team for baseball. It seems. I sent you stuff last night. Mike Ryan, the producer of the Dan Le Batard show, had so the Mariner Lair podcast had put out the Luis Castillo Rock commercial.
Or well, they didn't put it out. Well, they reposted it.
They reposted it. And then Mike Ryan of that team, or of Miami-based podcast that are all Miami team lovers, was like, nah, the Mariners are great. I
mean, Mina Kimes was on the Le Batard show for a while, so got a little Northwest love there.
That is true. But this team, as you said, is constructed so well with great energy, right? We always said, Gino was good vibes only, blah, 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 blah. But I think if Julio starts to dip a little and start getting down on himself, we won't ever see that on the field. You won't ever see it. He'll do it in the dugout, probably a little bit. But here's the thing. Mitch Haniger's going to be like, knock it off. Let's go. Get him back into it. As you said, team guys, right? He has looked up to Mitch his entire career with the Mariners. He has been a mentor to him.
I love Mitch's.
And not to mention, let's even throw it back some more. Ichiro in the clubhouse still pretty much every day.
No, basically every day.
Right. And that's another guy that your MVP of the team who could be more beloved than Ken Griffey Jr.
By the time it's all said and done, yeah.
Yeah. This is a guy. Dude, I see Julio posting on Twitter every single day. The commercial that got released today with the no-fly zone with him and Ichiro was fantastic. And for him to come out and be like, Ichiro is the GOAT. And it's just, this dude means so much to this city already in year 3. This is a dude that is ride or die Mariners for life. And he is going to be the MVP this year and hit 40 home runs and steal 40 bags.
That's good. Those are some good numbers.
Sorry, I had to match your energy. I'm trying.
Okay. I'm going to talk about one of the things that I'm most excited for right now.
Okay.
And you touched on it a little bit there. Mariners commercials are back, and they are so freaking awesome. It started off with the release of the big dumper trucking company where you got Kirby and the two young bucks in the back of a dump truck, Logan Gilbert riding shoddy. And then I think you had Bryce Miller or Kirby trying to call shot on the way back, and Logan Gilbert shot that down real quick. So that was the first one. The Rock one was also good because I think you had a couple of guys sitting there. I think it was Ty France and JP talking. They're like, man, Luis is really taking this Rock thing to a new level. And he's sitting there in the classic Rock get up with the fanny pack and the chain and the black turtleneck. And I think the best thing, I loved that part of it, but the best thing from that commercial was Mitch Haniger at the end saying, man, a lot of things changed around here. It was so good. And then today, with the drop of the no fly zone Ichiro, where he's snapping a fly out of the air, before he came on screen, I know exactly who it was. And when he threw up the X and said no fly zone, right? Like, oh, dude, oh, chef's kiss.
I can't zone it, baby.
Are so awesome. You looked at the light bat with Edgar. You looked at him teaching guys how to pronounce you get your duck in Puyallup. You know, you had that. You had Seager at the hot corner.
Yeah.
I think you had about God. What was it? Was Marco Gonzalez?
Yeah.
And another inning eater that he was like best friends with in that rotation. We had like that progressive where like, hey, if we want you for another year, we'll pay you like an extra $1 million. Wade LeBlanc. That's who it was. Where they were like crocheting like Mariners things. Mariners commercials are awesome, and I am ecstatic that they are back.
One of the positive things I think for this team is the outfield seems to be in a pretty solid spot right now. You know, you had Dom Canzone.
Who? Every time
Canzone.
it hits a home run, I'm gonna call him Don Canzone.
He had a fantastic spring. Mitch Haniger again had a fantastic spring. Julio, fantastic spring.
The worst of the bunch was Luke Raley, and he started getting hot towards the end, where they basically said, we're going to give, like, we need him to turn it around. I think, going into the last week or so, he was batting like 77, and I think he brought it up to 175. And he was hitting the ball with authority to the gaps.
And not to mention the guys that you have that could get called up this year.
Cade Marlowe looked awesome all spring. Samad Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, I think this outfield is in a great spot this year, even barring injury. I think Samad Taylor kind of cemented himself as one of the next guys up because of how well he played. Just the pop off the bat was outstanding. But your main guys right now with Mitch Haniger, Julio, and Dom Canzone, and Luke Raley is a good sport about it all, right? And a lot of players that have came to this team have said this team wants to win, and I want to win. I want to be on a winner. So
I think there's many teams that go out there and say, you know what, we don't want to win.
No, but like I saw something from what Ryan Stanek said. It's like,
I think it was Stanek. You heard it from Polanco. You heard it from Garver as well. But reason that Garver wanted to come here is he saw the potential. Yes, he also was going to be getting paid some good money, right?
Yeah.
But he could see the potential, and being those couple pieces away sometimes what puts you over the top, right?
Right.
No one was expecting. I was talking to someone today at work, and we were talking a little bit about the Mariners, and this is the other thing that I want to say. It's so cliche, but the world is our oyster right now. The Mariners are undefeated. They have
as
good of chance of anyone to win the World Series before the season starts. That's why you got to play the games. That's why there's 162 of them in the regular season, right? Those are all things that I just wanted to say because I think that they're fun to say, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at this team and how they are constructed, you look at those guys that are like, yeah, they do want to win. But you look at the start of last year, if I were to tell you that the Texas Rangers and Arizona Diamondbacks were going to play for the World Series and the Texas Rangers were going to come out on top, no one would have believed you.
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
It getting past the Braves and getting past the Phillies and getting past the Dodgers in the National League with how they were constructed for the Diamondbacks to get through there wasn't expected, right? You weren't expecting every person to have a career year for the Rangers offensively and for Jordan Montgomery, I think that's who it is, right? To just
Yeah.
be an absolute horse in the playoffs when you made the trades for when you signed DeGrom and made the trade for Scherzer, and then they both are hurt and are not
Yeah.
pitching in the playoffs for that team to win the World Series. I would have called you crazy. And
Yeah.
Adolis Garcia, who was probably their most electric player all year. I didn't say best, I said electric. For him to miss time in the World Series and for them to come out on top, wouldn't have
Right.
expected it, right?
Right.
You have the pieces on this team where if they can get hot concurrently, nice word that I just used right there, this team
Agreed.
could see multiple 5, 6, 7, even double digit win streaks. And I want them to do it early because there are going to be ups and downs. You
Mhm.
look at the way that Astros and the way that the Rangers are constructed with their starting pitching staff is not awesome. Verlander's starting the year on the shelf. DeGrom's on the shelf. I believe Scherzer's still on the shelf. The Rangers just signed Michael Lorenzen, who's coming back from injury and got signed like a couple of days ago. How good is he going to be early in the year? Use your rotation to propel yourself to an early lead. Let them chase you down.
Mhm.
That's what they
Mhm.
need to do. They need to start off hot.
And one more thing I want to add to this whole conundrum is that we spent a lot of the off season hating the owners and all that and not giving us enough cap. But god damn it, did Jerry do some magic? He did some magic this off season, and
And
this
Justin
team,
Hollander.
yeah, you know what? We always do magic with Jerry. It's what he does. So I'm gonna give props where it's due. You went and got Mitch Garver, Jorge Polanco, picked up Ryan Stanek. You got sticks in this lineup. You got deep. You made trades throughout last year. As we said, Ryan Bliss is kind of high on the getting called up list too, because had an amazing 2023. I
Damn
believe
good
he
spring, too.
I believe he had a great spring.
Yeah, I think it was over 333 and put a couple balls out of the park.
Exactly. So they worked some magic, right? They made this team the best that they could with what the cards that they were dealt. And I love this team coming in the year. Jorge Polanco is one of my favorite players. Give me more switch hitters. I love them. Like Mitch Garver, the absolute rock of the Texas Rangers lineup last year. It was feared.
I would say
And
the Rock all year, but in the playoff run, yes.
but you got these guys that have got the experience, got the playoffs, multiple years in a row with different teams, if that be right. And just the knowledge that some of these guys are going to share to the younger guys. The way this, as we said, this team is constructed with very injury heavy risk, right? But I think they have taken the precautions this year and kind of, as I've said, made it kind of deep, right? Jorge Polanco goes down. You throw Demo over there. You maybe call up Ryan Bliss, right? Mitch Garver goes down. You got hitters, right? Tyler Locklear for one. You could maybe bring him up, be your DH guy for a while.
First base, third base.
He could be our Mike Ford, but better. But better.
Or you could go get Mike Ford. He's available after he hit 2 dong shots off us.
I am in love with how this team is built this year compared to last year. You have more explosiveness and more hunger out of these guys than I have ever seen.
Wow. I got two more things. I know
Go
you said
ahead.
you were on your last thing, so I got two more things. I love Scott Service.
I
Right.
do too.
Scott Service is a guy that can get fired up when he needs to, but I think that he's another guy that really lets these guys be who they are and has really ratcheted up his game management in the last couple of years. And I appreciate that. And when there's going to be a slump, because it's going to happen at sometimes, we can call him Scott Cervezas because that's fun. But when they go on a big winning streak, we'll call him like Scott Johnny Walker Black.
There you go.
We'll up the liquor quality from
let's just
cervezas to Johnny Walker.
let's just not like have a different lineup every single day. Let's just kind of rock with what's going because he had some weird lineups he threw out there last year. Let's just have a consistent thing going.
Yeah. The last thing that I really want to finish on is I touched on it a little bit earlier. You start the year undefeated, your eyes are wide, you know, it's like the start of a school year, if you will. It's like the start of a new job. Everything's in front of you and you feel great about it. There's going to be bumps in the road, but the one thing that I can say that I've really appreciated about this off season is really diving into social media and seeing how many other people, fans, really just care about this team and love this team as much as we do, because baseball's not the easiest game to love.
It's
Some
true.
people think that it's a little bit slow. There's a ton of games. You're sitting there at 162, and then you throw in the playoffs, you're looking at potentially 180, 190 plus games per year to stay invested. It's what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
When the Mariners are going good, the euphoria that I have from their success is so great. And it's not something that you can have in other parts of your life. It's something for me. I've grown up a Mariners fan, going on 35 years, about to be 36. I was indoctrined to Ken Griffey Jr., the double, Freddie Garcia,
Yeah.
116 wins, Brett Boone having so much steroids pumped into him, Ichiro's MVP Rookie of the Year season. You know, all of these great players that have paved the path for this current team. Because that's the thing, is you always have to respect the past in baseball. I think they do it almost better than anyone else.
Mhm.
But it's so exciting. And I cannot wait for first pitch tomorrow. I will be locked in to every single minute of that game.
Yeah.
It
Same.
is going to be awesome. I was at opening day last year. It was phenomenal. Not going to be
Right.
at opening day this year, but I am going to be so locked in.
Yeah.
I've been,
Yeah.
I would, at the beginning of the offseason, I wasn't happy. I was like, yep, I am going to still support the Mariners. I'm not going to boycott my favorite team of all time because the ownership isn't willing to take that next step forward. But with the guys that you see on this team, with the personalities that we have grown to love and appreciate, and the guys that I want to get to know even better with these new additions,
Mhm.
it's going to be an awesome season, because it's always an awesome season for the Mariners, even when it doesn't go like we want it to do, which has been every year that they've
Yeah.
ever been in existence, because they have not hoisted the trophy for winning the World Series. That day will come. I don't know if it's going to be this year. I don't know if it's going to be next year. I don't know if it's going to be in 20 years, but I'm going to be along for that ride until the wheels fall off or until they give me a heart attack and I die on the floor. And I'm so excited for this season to get started. I do not give two shits about any other team. I only care about the Mariners, and I'm going to stay locked in on them all year, through good and through bad, through rich and through poor, till death do us part. Viva Los Mariners, I do.
I like it. I also really want them to do well so I can litter my team with Mariners cards on MLB The Show.
Speaking of that, we would love to litter your timeline on social media. What's up? Great segue there.
Boom.
If you're looking for a guy like me, you can find me, your boy Coach Red, on X at the real Coach Red, on Instagram at the real _Coach Red, TikTok at the real Coach Red. Hop on over to YouTube. Legitimately, go like the video.
Yeah.
Subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you know when the next one's going to come out. And legitimately, someone please leave 2 comments. I've been saying leave a comment or 2 for a while, and I haven't seen 2 comments on one video. So step up your game, fans. We're ready.
Yeah.
We will interact with you. I promise.
True.
I'll at least give you a heart. Cain, where you at?
You can find me over on Twitter at Cain2406, on YouTube at Cain06, TikTok Cain0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Falls. Do it, freaking do it!
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace. Goms.